That is hilarious. I have been talking since, and I just realized my mic was muted. Oh Lord, the joys. Okay, so I'm gonna have to take that entire introduction again, but I will not waste time. Okay, welcome to Fixit Finance. Today we're going to be discussing debt management strategies and how to pay off your debt. Sorry, I'm laughing crying because that was hilarious. I was really talking. Okay. Um if you have a question, as usual, please enter it in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. Send this to people that you know have debt or you know will need the information. We're going to be discussing how to pay off your debt. We're going to discuss. We're going to go through an example, which is one part that I'm really excited about, and kind of see, okay, everything we talked about, what does it look like? But one thing though, we're not going to be going. Which I'm going to try and keep this to 30 minutes, just because last week was very long. I should have done part one, part two, but we're still in the early days. We're testing out the kinks and whatnot. So work with us. Okay. All right. So we're going to try and keep these to 30 minutes each time. I will share my screen later on so we can go to an example. Please like, share, and subscribe. And send this to anyone. Share with anyone that you know would benefit. Let us get right into it. Debt management 101. Okay. So the very first thing you want to do when it comes to managing your debts or even on paying it off or anything, you want to know your debt. I know that sounds very simple and seems rather obvious, but you'll be surprised the amount of people that don't actually know what they owe. You understand? So most people know, okay, I have student loans, I have credit card debt, I have this, I have that. They don't know the amount, they don't know the interest rates, they don't even know the minimum payment sometimes. You understand? They just kind of go with the flow. So the very first thing you want to do is to actually know your debts. I always talk about know the state of your flock. It's a Bible verse. Know the state of your flock. You want to know exactly what it is. Denial is not an option. I say this all the time. Denial is not an option. Okay, it is an option, but it's not an option you should take. Okay. Um, how do you do that? First things first, call the lenders. You understand? Log into your account. How if you don't have an account, set one up. You understand? So you have a car loan with, I don't know, ATB or whichever bank. Get an account going so you can see, okay, your money is going in, your money is actually making the payments and whatnot. Ask for a recent statement. If they can't set up an account for you, ask for a statement, like your most recent statement. Give them a call and just ask and say, okay, how much is my balance? What is the interest rate? What's the minimum payment? If you don't already know that, you understand. You want to get as much detail on those debts. But the three things you definitely want to know with any debt is to know, one, what is the total balance as of today? You understand how much is owing as of today. Two, so basically how much you owe. Two, what is the minimum monthly payment? So what's the minimum I have to be paying on this debt each month to keep you, the lender, satisfied? And then number three, you definitely want to know the interest rate if applicable, okay? Because some debts don't have interest, right? So, go from there. The next thing you want to do, or the next thing you want to know when it comes to managing your debt. So number one is to actually know the debt. You understand? Number two is to know your cash flow, which in other words, know your budget. You understand? How much is coming into your account each month? How much is going out? Most importantly, what is left over? Most people know how much is coming in. Some know how much is going out. But the most important thing you want to know is how much is actually left over, because it's from that leftover you're going to be able to pay extra on any debt that you have. Okay. So I always talk about that your budget will expose you to yourself. You understand? Like, you want to make sure you know your cash flow. So the first thing when it comes to managing your debt is to actually know the debt. You want to call your lender, um, ask them for a most recent statement, log into your account. You want to know the total balance of today. You want to know how much you owe. Two, you want to know the minimum required payment. And three, interest rates if applicable. All this is going to apply when we walk through our example in a few minutes. Okay. Second thing is to know your cash flow. You understand? Because it's from what's left over, right? So you want to know what's coming in, you want to know what's going out. The difference in that is how much you're going to have left to be able to pay off the debt. Okay. Um, like I mentioned, your budget will expose you to yourself. Don't be afraid of what it has to say. It's okay. Um, you understand? If you don't rule over your finances, I always say the lack of control over it will rule over you. You understand? So you want to make sure you have that control in that you understand what's coming in, what's going out. You don't have to use anything fancy like a budgeting app if you don't want to. Simple pen and paper. You understand? Each week, write down, okay, how much came in, how much went out. You understand? which ones are fixed, which ones are variable. So fixed are the ones that, they automatically take it. It's the same amount roughly each month. Then variable is the one that you have some sort of control over, what actually goes out. You understand? So you want to know and understand that aspect of your finances, okay? And all this is leading up to what you call it, actually paying off the debt. Okay. So that's one, and then that's two. Number three, and which is the final step, is to basically choose a plan, like choose your debt payoff strategy. There are different ways to pay off debt. Some of the most popular ones, I'll be discussing three today, just because those are the three most popular ones. And 9 out of 10 times, most people will fall into this category. Um, you have other options like, bankruptcy and all that, but that's beyond the scope of what we are trying to do here. I would assume that's the case. Okay. So the very first strategy, and this is the one, anyways, let's talk about it first and then we'll talk about different things later on. The very first strategy is called the debt snowball. So what does that mean? If you've ever seen these movies or cartoons, at least when I was a kid, they will start like, let's say Tom and Jerry, or I don't know which other one. I don't remember some of the cartoons from when we were kids. You roll a like a snowball, for example. You know how by the time you start rolling, Kim Possible is another one that had this actually. You roll the snow, and by the time you start rolling the snow, it becomes bigger and bigger, you understand, until it becomes like this massive ball. That's basically the concept here. Okay. So when it comes to the debt snowball, what you do is you're going to list all your debts from the smallest one to the largest one, or from the lowest to the highest in terms of the total balance owing. Keep in mind from step one, we found out three things from each debt: the total balance owing, the interest rate, and the minimum monthly payment. Okay. All those three things matter in the strategy that you use, or in the strategy that you choose to use. Okay. So for the debt snowball, you list your debts from the smallest one to the biggest one, and then you pay the minimum payment on the smallest one, right? Which is again what we discovered in step one. And you pay the minimum payment on everything except the smallest one. So on the smallest one, any extra cash flow you have that you discovered from step two, any extra money you have, then you put it on the smallest one. You understand? And then from there, once that one is paid off, you take the minimum payment from that smallest one plus the extra cash flow you found, and then you apply it to the next one. We'll see this as an example. So don't if you're a little confused, that's okay. We're gonna work to an example in Excel, and it's actually fun to see. Okay. Um, then that's your debt snowball type situation. You take that extra payment, like I mentioned, you use it, you apply it to the next one, and you do this on repeat until you finish paying off all non-mortgage debt. Okay. So you use your free cash flow to pay off anything. And then after that, you take that same free cash flow, you use it to invest and grow your wealth and blah, blah, blah. Again, beyond the scope of today's episode. Okay. Some pros to this particular approach. One of the reasons I really like it is you gain a lot of momentum with this. You understand? In the sense of like that snowball I was talking about, it grows because as it's rolling down the hill, it's picking up more snow. You understand? So as you begin this process, you start with whatever free cash flow you have, you're dumping it on the smallest debt. Then as you pay that off, you start to figure out, okay, what are other ways you can increase your cash flow? So there's a whole bunch of optimization that happens naturally as a result of doing this, because now it becomes almost like a game. You're looking at your budget, you're looking at your cash flow and figuring out, okay, where can I shave more? Where can I reduce expenses? Where can I increase my income so that I can add more to be able to pay off this debt? You understand? It almost becomes like a game. And the main reason I really, really like it is because by the time you're done with this process, you've optimized your finances such that you're now living on what it actually takes for you to live, survive, and be happy. You understand? In the sense of you don't have too many fluff. You don't have too much fluff in your budget because you've gotten rid of all the fluff. You understand that you've actually learned to live on, less than you make, and you've learned to live on what would actually be satisfying. You realize, for example, in our case, we had cable for free for a year because we had just bought a condo. They gave us cable for free for a year. We started this process in between, and then we're like, do we really need cable? And we said no. Until today, we still don't have cable and we're surviving. You understand? So that's what I'm trying to say. There's nothing wrong with having cable. That's not the issue here. My point is, you end up figuring out what actually works for you and what you like and what you don't like. You understand? So different things. For example, we were a one-car family until last year or the year before. You understand? And the main reason we even bought the second car was not necessarily because we needed it. There were other reasons why. You get a lot of people said, why don't we have two cars? And we're like, we like actually driving each other to work and gisting in the morning and gisting in the afternoon on our way back. You understand? Could we afford a new car? Yes. But again, in the process of trying to optimize our finances, we figured out, okay, we can do without some of these things until we finish paying off this debt. And then once we're done paying off the debt, we're like, we like our life without it. You understand? Okay. Like I mentioned, another one of the reasons I really like this method is it really helps you focus on increasing your cash flow. And you can increase your cash flow in one of two ways. One, you decrease your expenses. Two, you increase your outcome. You understand? So you know what you're focusing on. You're not torn in different, and because you have a plan. One of the biggest reasons I like, any one of these debt payoff strategies is because you have a plan. Your mental load is freed up. Like, you'll be surprised once you determine that, okay, you've written all your debts down, you've chosen a strategy, and this is what you're going to attack first, and then you're going to attack this next. It frees up so much space in your mind. Okay. Um, some of the cons to this, or the downfall, not downfall. Anyways, English is special today. Okay, one of the cons to this is the fact that, some schools of thought believe, okay, which is going to be the next one we talk about, which is called the debt avalanche. Some believe that, okay, you should pay off debts that have the highest interest first. You understand? And, to a large extent, that also makes sense. We'll discuss it. That's the next strategy to discuss. Because obviously, if you have a debt that has higher interest, then your cost of borrowing is higher there. You understand? So that's just one con for this. Let's go into the next one. And then we'll determine based off of our example. I want you as the listener to actually look at it and decide, what should this particular family use? You understand? Which strategy should they use? Which one makes sense? Which one doesn't? Okay. Debt avalanche. So basically, everything I just mentioned for the debt snowball is the exact same thing, except you pay off the one that has the highest interest first. You understand? So in the debt snowball method, it's the one that has the lowest balance you start with. You understand? So let's say you have a debt, the total owing is 100, another one is 1,000, another one is 1,500. You pay off the 100 first, then the 1,000, then 1,500. In the debt avalanche, let's say the one that's $100 is 29% interest, but the one that's 1,500 is 2% interest, right? You would pay off the no, flip that. Anyways, you would pay off the $100 first because it has the highest interest, not because it's the smallest balance. Okay. Again, we're going to work through an example very soon. The third strategy is debt consolidation. Okay, so basically, this method is basically if you have room, let's say on a line of credit, on a home equity line of credit, on a credit card, on different other means of borrowing, rather than try and pay off. Let's say once you've done step one, which is to know your debts. Let's say you've written everything down and you realize, you have 15 different debts, and you just don't want to focus on 15 different things. One method is to, for example, take all that debt, roll it into one. You understand? So you will need to apply for, we'll go into details of this just in a minute. So basically, if you have room on a line of credit or whatnot, let's even say you don't have a line of credit, you can then go and get a line of credit, use the line of credit to pay off all the 15 debts, and then focus on only paying the line of credit. Okay, so that's one method. So we've discussed three different strategies now. First one is the debt snowball, which is where you pay the minimum payment on everything except the smallest one. No, not except, including the smallest one, and any free cash flow you have, you use it to attack the smallest one. And then you keep doing that on repeat until you've reached the last one and pay it off. The debt avalanche is basically the same thing. You pay minimum payment on everything except the one with the highest interest, which is where you take your free cash flow and you attack that one first. You keep doing that on repeat until you get to the next one. One thing I would say for the debt snowball and the debt avalanche, just I said it before, but I want to reiterate it. Make sure the minimum payment. So let's say you finish paying off the $100 one. You don't now take the minimum payment from that one and start spending it. No, you take that minimum payment plus the free cash flow and apply it to the next one. Okay. And that's how you build momentum, in these methods. For the debt consolidation, basically, you use one account to pay off all the other accounts, and then you focus on paying just that one account. Okay. All your free cash flow plus all the money you would have been using for minimum payments elsewhere will go towards paying off that one account. Okay. So for debt consolidation, some of the pros and cons, some of the issues I personally have with it, not personally, but some of the issues people run into with this is one, you usually need very good credit to do this. And chances are, if you have like 15 different credits out there or 15 different loans out there, you know, chances of you having good credit is a little low, especially if you've had, different things like collections, missed payments, what else? Your credit utilization. For example, you have a credit card that's 10,000, you have a balance on it that's 7,000. That is going to affect your credit. So basically, you need very good credit to be able to do this. In the sense of uh, so if your credit score is really low, you may not be able to access a line of credit or a HELOC, for example, to be able to do something like this. There's limitations on how much you can actually borrow. So, for example, most line of credits will loan you a maximum of, say, to a large extent, depending on your income and whatnot, anywhere from 30 to 50,000. You understand? But a HELOC, you might be able to get more depending on the value of your home and how much you've paid off. We'll go through that when we go to the example. We're gonna get to the oh wow, we're already halfway through. Okay, I'm gonna go to the example soon. Depending on how you do this, if you don't do this properly, you might end up paying interest on interest. So you want to be very, very careful how you use this. And then sorry. I just realized there's comments. I apologize. I was having so much fun. I didn't read them. Okay. Yes, Janelle, you are completely right. It definitely becomes a game, and it is a lot of fun because you then become like the optimization specialist. You understand? Yeah. Anyways. Okay. Um, would I rather pay off the lowest? So Michael is asking, would I rather pay off the lowest debt first or the one with the highest interest rate? So we'll walk through an example and then you decide. I'll talk about what I would do and then, we'll kind of go from there. Thank you for that question though. So we're going to go through this example and go from there. Oh, I just said it. Okay. Um, so Janelle is asking, would you suggest getting a line of credit even if you don't need it at the time? Actually, the best time to get a line of credit is when you don't need it. So yes, I would suggest. I have like three. No, that's a lie. I have one. Well, as a family, we have at least two. So one for me, one for my husband. We don't use it, but the best time to actually get credit is when you don't need it, which I think is, you know, ironic. For example, let's say you just lost your job. You know, you don't have any cash flow, blah blah blah. You go to the bank, they're not going to give you any credit. But the moment you have a job, you do this, that's the time to actually take on the credit. You understand? For example, they sent me something the other day. They wanted to increase my credit card limit. I was like, sure, increase it. I know I'm not going to use it, but in my mind, I'm just like, fine. So you got to know what works for you. Again, we have developed through this process of when we paid off debt, we developed a lot of discipline, right? Again, which is kind of what Janelle was saying earlier. We developed a lot of discipline, right? Such that we don't necessarily we don't get carried away. You understand? So just because they increase my credit limit on my credit card doesn't mean I'm going to go spend it, you know? So, for example, we've had our line of credits for close to 2 or 3 years now. We've touched it once. And the only reason we touched it is because I was too lazy to send money from my savings account. I just did it because my paycheck was going to come in and then I just moved it. You understand? So that's what I'm saying. The beauty of it, Michael is saying you have to be super disciplined. Yes, and that's what happens when you go through this process. It's really, really, really good, such that you don't even get tempted. You understand? There have been times when we walk into a car dealership and we walk right out because we know, nope, this is not happening. You understand? Again, anyways, let's go through that example before I get too excited. I really enjoy these type of discussions, as you can tell. So okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Let's go through our example. If you don't like math, that's okay. You only need like grade 5 math or grade 4 math safe. Plus or minus, divide and multiply. That's all you need for paying off debt. Okay. Can we see this? Is this zoomed in enough? I hope it is. Because on my end it is super clear, but sometimes let me see. Okay. So we have this family here. We don't know their names. Let's just call them Jane and John because they are our favorite couple. Oh, let me switch my layout, see if that'll be. Oh, there we go. Much better. Okay. John and Jane. This is so they've written down all their debts. So these are the people they owe. They have a BMO home equity line of credits. They have a CIBC line of credits. They have a fine because thank you. I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about before we go into the example real quick is and this is just a personal rule of mine. Whenever you're doing this process, I would highly advise that people and taxes come first. So if you write down your list of people you owe, and you owe, when I say people, I'm talking family and friends, and then taxes. So if you owe the CRA, for example, if you live in Canada, IRS, if you're in the States, you always want to put those at the top, no matter the interest rates and no matter the what you call it, no matter the total payments, right? So you want to tackle those first. Now I say people, and again, this is just personal for me. You can do what you decide. Is because, for example, if my sister-in-law or my friend, they loaned me, $20,000 to do something, buy a house, do whatever, do whatever. Even though they say not to pay it back, because I understand what it's like to be on both ends of need, in the sense of being the one to give and being the one to receive. I understand, even though they say they don't need that money. I don't want that particular, just stuff in between us. So I'm the kind of person, if I borrow money from a friend, I want to pay it off right away. For example, if I say I'm going to pay it off by December, chances are my plan is to pay it off by October. You understand? Or even August. Just so, the relationship at whatnot is nice and clean and crisp. You understand? So anyways, that's just my personal take on things. You do what you want to do. There's absolutely nothing wrong with anything. For example, if you get a loan from your parents to buy a house, you understand? That's between you and them. Decide how you want to manage that relationship. That's just my personal takeaway. Okay, let's go into our example. Okay, so this is how much. So remember how I mentioned the three things you want to know is your total owing, which is this, your minimum monthly payments, and then the interest. Okay, so in this family, I'm gonna okay. So on the BMO line of credits, they don't owe anything. Okay, so the available amounts they have is $100,000 on a 10-year term. So their home was say 500,000. The loan to value that they usually would do for a line of credit is about 80%. So let's just assume they've been in this house for 5 to 10 years. So they've paid off enough such that they're able to borrow at least 100,000 on a home equity line of credit. That's the interest. They've put nothing on it. Okay, so far, so the entire 100,000 is available. They have a line of credit to CIBC. They've currently borrowed 6,000 on it. The minimum monthly payment, as usual, is 2% of the balance, or $50, whichever is higher. So that's why this is 120. And this is the interest rate. Excuse me. The CRA. So they have someone in this family over contributed to the RSP. They ended up getting a fine. Blah blah blah. This is how much it is. This is the interest rate. And again, one of the reasons why I like to take care of the CRA and co first is because then they start to do things like seize your tax return. They could garnish your wages. I really just don't want that mess. So settle the CRA and just get them out of your life real quick. Because if you don't pay them or you don't pay attention to them and then decide to garnish your wages, that's just unnecessary stress. So please take care of taxes first. Even if you don't take care of people first, take care of your taxes or tax related payments first. They also owe on their student loan. So, they currently have a fixed rate. This is the minimum payment. Their WestJet MasterCard, they owe, $2,200. This is the interest rate. The minimum payment is usually $10 plus the interest. So they have 2 car loans, which is typical of most families. One for mom, one for dad, or one for dad. So they have this for a 96-month term. And then, of course, they owe their sister-in-law or their friend, they were in a crunch, and this person borrowed them $3,500. Okay. There's no interest. There's no minimum payment. They just said pay back when you can. Okay. So in total, these folks, John and Jane, this is how much they owe overall when it comes to their debts, roughly $124,000. This is their minimum monthly payment. Okay. And then let's look at some other details of this family. They have their current take home pay is 120,000. So let's just assume John and Jane each bring 60,000 each. So their average take home pay is about $6,800, so $6,850. These are their expenses. So the mortgage on the $500,000 home, current interest rates definitely sitting around here. Their property tax is that, utilities, groceries, gas, cell phone, $600 for other things like, eating out, subscription, gym memberships, clothing, miscellaneous, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, their debt servicing is 1708, which is what we calculated up here. So minimum of this 6,850, they have at least $1,700 going towards debt management in a month. So this is their total expenses. So this is how much free cash flow this particular family has at this time once they factor in all their expenses. Now, I know you might say, "Oh, wow, that's such a small amount," but in today's climate, this is very typical. You have a home that's worth almost 500K. This is roughly how much you're paying. Groceries for a family of say four. Even if it's not hitting 1,000, by the time you add so many other factors, it's definitely cutting it close. As average of $250 to $300 per person, right? Okay, so we've calculated that their free cash flow is this $122. So let's go back up and say, so remember we talked about three methods. The first one was the debt snowball, second is the debt avalanche, third is debt consolidation. So if they were going to do this using the debt snowball, they would take this particular worksheet and sort it from the smallest to the largest. Okay, so as we see, the CRA comes first, which I thought was cute. So this is the total balance owing, right? So they will pay the minimum payment on everything except the CRA one. Okay, and then this $122 that they have is going to go towards paying off the CRA, right? So they'll keep making the minimum 1,700, and that extra 122 will be paying this one off until it's paid off. And then we go to the MasterCard next. So they would add that 122 to this 148 to this $48, and that's how much they would be paying off until they pay off every single thing. So, like I mentioned, I usually like to do CRA first anyway. So it just happens to be that they are first in line. So they will get paid and be closed off. So in this particular case now, what John and Jane need to do is figure out how to, increase their $122 so that they can have more free cash flow to be able to clear off those debts, right? So usually, like I mentioned, there's only two ways: increase your inflow or decrease your outflow, which is where the game now starts, like Janelle was talking about. You try and figure out, okay, where can you shave off in all these expenses to be able to increase how much you can put towards debt. You understand? Do we really need to spend 1,000 on groceries? Is there a way to manage utilities better? This $600 is where you can really make some real big, can you cancel a gym membership? Do the children have to do swimming right now, or can they wait till we're done paying debt? You understand? So those are the kind of questions then you begin to ask. For your cell phones, can you renegotiate your deals? You understand? Those are some of the things you need to talk about. These two cars, for example, the car payments right now total about $1,200 out of the 1,700. Do we really need those two cars? Can we get rid of one, or can we get rid of both and go down into cars that we can actually afford? Little things like that. If you were going to do the debt avalanche method, then you would sort this spreadsheet basically this way, largest to smallest. So this one has the highest interest rate. So then RBC would come first, right? Now, in this scenario, you want to be careful because it has CRA at the very, very bottom. So that's not the case. You want to kick that to the top, okay? Interest rate or no interest rate. And then this will be the one to get paid first, then this, then this, then this, okay? So that's basically how it works. But now when it comes to debt consolidation, I'm just going to resort this by the total amount owing, just to keep it simple. You have 125,000 owing. On this home equity line of credit right now, all they have access to is 100,000. So even if they took that 100,000 and paid off, a good chunk of all these debts, there will still be 24,000 roughly that's unaccounted for that they still have to pay. Okay. So that could be one method they choose, whereby, say, for example, they take the 100,000 and pay off the two cars and the student loan, right? So they pay these. Oh no, it's not enough. Sorry, pay off the two cars, right? So roughly $80,000. Then they'll take these payments of $1,200, and be putting that towards the home equity line of credit. The only issue that usually pops up in this situation, or in situations like this, one, now you're putting your home at risk. You understand? Because if you go to renew your mortgage, for the next time and there's issues, this home equity line of credit will also count. Two, the discipline, because a lot of people, what will then happen is once they've rolled, for example, this 80,000 into the house or into the HELOC, then they will start spending this $1,200 on different things. That's when they're going to go and pick up, a new TV or a new whatever. You understand? So you want to make sure you have that discipline, like we talked about. If you're going to do debt consolidation, it takes even more discipline. So if you've not developed the discipline, that you can't assume you're going to have it all of a sudden because you've consolidated debt. You understand? So again, those are the three different strategies. pick the one that you think makes sense towards you and your family. We personally as a family, we use the debt snowball. And again, like I mentioned, the best part of the debt snowball is, the optimization that comes from it, because you learn how to optimize your finances. You understand? It becomes a game. The entire family is involved. How can we save money here? Get the kids involved to get them to sell stuff to be able to raise money to put towards debt. You understand? There's so many ways you can go about it. Find ways to increase your income, decrease your outflow. Usually start here. Like, decreasing your outflow is the easiest place to start, because you can actually find ways to reduce your consumption in general, so you can free up more cash flow to go towards the debt up here. Okay, I don't see any questions in the comments. I'm going to assume everything is clear as mud. Okay, we are currently over the 30-minute mark, so I will wrap it up here. If you have any questions, now is the time to speak. If you don't, well, even if you do afterward, if you're watching this after the fact, just leave a comment or send an email to kara@fixitfinance.ca, and I will pick it up from there. In the end, I hope I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you. Anyways, we will. Oh, I see a question in the comments. Let me see. It says for the debt avalanche method, it should not be about interest rates. Would you consider the balance owing vis-a-vis the interest rate? I don't understand in terms of, would you consider the balance owing vis-a-vis the interest rate? So if you're using the balance owing, then you're doing the debt snowball method. So if you're not doing interest rate, then you're doing the debt snowball method. If you're doing interest rates, then you're doing the avalanche method. So like I mentioned, I personally am a fan of the debt snowball because that's what we used and it worked great for us. I actually did some calculations and said, okay, if we did the other way with the avalanche, which one would be like, would we have saved that much money? And we found out what we would have saved in interest was pretty much a wash. Says, for example, I don't understand the question of Michael. I'm sorry. 20% on it. I don't think I'm getting it. But you know what? I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I'll take this offline with you just because I know Michael personally. Okay. Anyways, thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining. As usual, we will see you again next week. And I will announce the topic sometime during the week. I'm still trying to decide. If you have a topic you want us to talk about, let us know, and then we'll take it on and go do a deep dive. Thank you all for joining. Have a wonderful Easter weekend and enjoy your Saturday. Bye.